Now you have the overview of looking how the body takes those carbon-hydrogen bonds in foods, rips them apart, and with putting oxygen on them, we get carbon dioxide and water, and then we have ATP, or the energy molecule, that captures the energy release, and then the body can spin that ATP. Now we're going to look at those processes of how the body takes carbohydrates, lipids, and protein, and actually gets that ATP and splits that carbon-hydrogen bond. Now all three macronutrients, the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the lipids, will go through three basic processes. They'll have different steps to get to them, but there will be some common elements to them. Those three basic steps are that they must be converted first to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is kind of the center of metabolism, and so each one of our macronutrients, and I will go through each one of them, must get to that central part. Once it gets to acetyl-CoA, that's the first process, then it drops into that TCA cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle. It's sometimes called the citric acid cycle, sometimes the Krebs cycle, but it's just a series of metabolic pathways that does rotate, and so we call it a cycle. But once we get to acetyl-CoA, we can drop down into that TCA cycle. The body will, again, rip apart that carbon, take oxygen, put it on, we get CO2. It releases off an energized hydrogen, and that energized hydrogen is going to be picked up by NAD and FAD and brought through the electron transport chain. And that's where we bring down that energy, put oxygen on it to get that water, and get ATP. So our end products are carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. And the body can now spin that ATP, again, for its body processes. So, three basic processes. Get to acetyl-CoA, go through the TCA cycle, and then go through the electron transport chain. But let's take a look at how each one of those macronutrients does it more specifically. We'll start with glucose. So glucose, and we should have a sense of how many carbons it is to kind of think through what's going on with that. Glucose is a six carbon molecule. And we have to get it to this central acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is 2 carbons. The first thing the body's going to do is going to bring it to a molecule called pyruvate. Pyruvate is 3 carbons. This is actually multiple steps, but we're going to again summarize this to get the overall picture of energy metabolism. So you can see that we have 6 carbons going to 3 carbons. We're going to essentially split it in half. We'll end up with 2 pyruvate, and then we can bring it down to this acetyl-CoA. This process of going from glucose to pyruvate is called glycolysis. We get a little bit of energy here, just a little bit, 2 ATPs. And it is the only process that we have in the body that will give us any energy at all without oxygen. Because the first step where we must use oxygen is going from pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. So we bring oxygen in and we get a carbon dioxide. We get a little bit of ATP going up here, but very little. We can't live very long without oxygen, and the reason why there's not enough energy. But this is an anaerobic metabolism. It's the only place where we actually can produce energy without oxygen, but it's not very much. Once we go down from pyruvate forward, it is an aerobic metabolism because we must have oxygen. So once we get this pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, I've drawn a very large down arrow because this is an irreversible process. Once you get something to acetyl-CoA, it cannot go back up to pyruvate. That's not the case with pyruvate to glucose. You can actually go from glucose to pyruvate and back up to glucose. The body doesn't just do this automatically. It's different types of metabolic situations where we need energy, we're going to bring it this way, and if we need glucose, we can push it that way. But it is reversible. This step, however, is not. So again, once we got it to an acetyl-CoA, we can bring it through the TCA cycle and through that electron transport chain and get our ATP. We get about 36 to 38 ATP, just to compare. So 2 up here, and by the end down here we have 36 to 38. So this aerobic metabolism provides much more energy than this anaerobic, this small little pathway. As we bring in these other pathways here, what we'll find is that we need to break it up into the different parts of it. So triglycerides, if we look at that molecule, it's made up of the 3-carbon backbone called glycerol, and attached to each one of those carbons is a fatty acid. So there are 3 fatty acids attached with every glycerol to form a triglyceride. acids are always an even number, from anywhere from 8 to 24, but always an even number. And that's specifically because we are going to make them from a 2-carbon molecule. But what we can see here is that we have a 3-carbon glycerol, and it's going to be very easy to bring that 3-carbon over here to pyruvate before it goes to acetyl-CoA. And that's not the case with fatty acids. Fatty acids, we're going to do a fatty acid oxidation. Which is sometimes called a beta oxidation, because beta, second letter of the Greek alphabet, meaning 2, it will take off 2 carbons at a time and convert it to acetyl-CoA. So it goes directly to acetyl-CoA. It does not go to pyruvate before it comes down here. Once we're here, same thing. TCA cycle, bring it through the electron transport chain. The last one then here is protein. Now we don't actually just spin straight protein. First thing we must do is break it down into its building blocks, amino acids. Amino acids are unique in that they have the nitrogen-containing part of it. And the body is actually going to take the nitrogen off that each amino acid through a process called deamination and convert that nitrogen to urea and excrete it in our urine. It's what gives urine our color, the yellow color, and our smell, ammonia-type smell. But once we have that off, we're back down to the carbon-hydrogen kind of backbones of amino acids. From there, we're going to go through these same processes. There are 20 different amino acids, and each one of them has their own steps of this process. But generally, about half of them, we'll put 50%, go to pyruvate, and the other half go to acetyl-CoA, or directly into the TCA cycle. So everything gets here to acetyl-CoA, but some things go through pyruvate before they get to acetyl-CoA, other things come to acetyl-CoA directly. And that's going to be important later on, because we're going to look at those things that can be converted back to glucose. But we can take a look here. They all have that central location, or central molecule to acetyl-CoA, and the same steps to go through to get to our end products of carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, our energy that we can use to sustain life.